Hello, everybody. Welcome to the United Stand. We are live. I'm joined by Levin. How you doing, pal?
Doing good. Good day of Euros. So some entertaining football. So I'm feeling excited.
Well, we're going to be talking about some of our players that were involved in the Euros. Bruno, I actually think there's a fair point to be discussed about Bruno, which we'll talk about a little bit later. He's quiet again today. We're going to start up with, there is an update on Sancho. A lot of people have seen the morning show. There is a further update on that. Also, a little bit about Van der Beek and potentially leaving. But we're going to start off with Paul Pogba because I don't think many people actually picked up on this from The Athletic. I think it may have even been yesterday. I saw it today. Paul Pogba is far happier in the second part of last season and is amenable to signing a new contract at United beyond his current deal, which expires in June. His list of suitors to buy him isn't quite as long as it was left when he left Juventus, and he therefore may be more potential for him to sign a new contract at Manchester United. I do think that we are going to see with Paul Pogba more and more stories. Look, today for France, it wasn't a performance that I think is going to have clubs queuing up for him, but, neither was Kante's or a few other players. So I think Pogba is a player that people will be looking at. But I find that quite interesting because I think with Paul Pogba, I've always known that there's this possibility he's going to run his contract down. But you do keep getting these stories every now and again that he might be amenable to staying at United. He enjoyed the last few months there. What do you think about that, Levin? Do you think that's a good idea? First of all, do you think it's a good idea that Pogba stays, or do you think it's, after 5 years, it's time to move on? And then secondly, do you think he actually will do, or do you think this is just more hopeful thought?
Well, for one, in terms of do I think it's the right idea, I personally do. I know there's a lot of people who are fed up of Pogba, right? A lot of people who will be feeling as if 5 years we've not got the best out of him. I think you can look at many reasons why we've not got the best out of him, and so I still am willing to sort of keep Pogba in the squad. I think he's a great positive to the squad. Do I think this is actually going to happen? I still just remain, if he doesn't re-sign his contract after the Euros at some point, he is just running his contract down. I don't see a scenario where we start next season and then something changes and he decides, I'll just stay. Do you know what I mean? So yeah, that's sort of where I'm at with Pogba.
It also goes on to say in The Athletic that Paul Pogba is popular with his teammates at Manchester United, even though there are certain at the club who become frustrated when his future is uncertain and he doesn't act to quell speculation. Well, that's what makes me think there might be some truth in this story, because to be honest with you, this is a frustration that most of us as fans have as well, is that, we get these stories about Pogba leaving before a Manchester derby and stuff like that, and Pogba will just go, shush. There's never any, he never comes, I mean, like Raiola, what did Raiola say before the Leipzig game? It was disgusting, and Pogba doesn't come out and say anything about it, which to me suggests that, look, sometimes Raiola, as his agent, is, and look, Pogba fans, and I'm a Pogba fan, and it sounds like you are as Levin, and I'm sure a lot of people are, but I do agree with that. I think that when Raiola comes out, and let's remember what Raiola said in December, there's no way he's signing a new contract. He doesn't want to be here. And Pogba didn't come out and say anything about that. So I think that there obviously is a conflicted part of Pogba that he does want to leave. And I suppose we're just hoping that something changes since Christmas, because I think it's been very clear for a long time that Pogba does want to leave, maybe understandably.
Yeah, that's what I was going to actually just ask you. Do you think he is sort of valid to potentially feel that way, right? Like, do you think it's fair for him to feel as if this isn't the place for me anymore? I've been here for a couple of years.
I do. I desperately want him to stay because I don't trust this club to be able to be anywhere near competence enough to replace him. But if I, as a Manchester United fan, have sat here fed up with the way the club's run, fed up with the fact that we've never won a title in 8 years or been near it, even though we finished second, we've been nowhere near it. How can I, as a United fan, sit here and say, after 5 years, oh, you're so disloyal, Pogba. Why do you want to go and win trophies elsewhere? I mean, Pogba's may not be a United fan. I'm sure he loves United because he's been here for a long time of his career. But, if I'm as a United fan saying, I've got to sit here and be honest, Levin, I don't know about you, but I've got to be honest here and say, I don't blame him if he wants to go because he's ambitious. Part of me thinks if he signs a new contract, is he not a bit of a mercenary? Because for his career, I've got to be honest, unless we have a madness this summer, he's got to be right.
I think that's valid, you know what I mean? Because you do sort of look at the talent he is. You look at what he's achieved, sort of at the national level, right? Where he's a World Cup winner. I don't think anybody really that is serious at least doubts his ability. And so it's a question of looking around. I don't think he looks around and thinks to himself, yeah, we're sort of a couple steps away from being serious. Do you know what I mean? So I don't blame him if he wants to leave. And I did sort of always feel as if, it made sense. But that second half of the season, after that whole, the Champions League stuff, right before the game with Leipzig when Raiola came out, after that, it did sort of feel as if that there was like massive amounts of positivity, and that could have just been Ollie having a conversation with him saying, look, whatever you want to do, we'll give you that freedom. You know, just give us these next couple of months and give us your all. Could have been that. Very well could have been that. But as someone who might be a bit naive, I see that and I think, look, things can be rosy. We can win games. We can be somewhat competitive. Stay, demand a couple signings. The club obviously want to keep you. Do you know what I mean? So there is that optimism in there. But at the same time, it's like, this summer will be very telling. You know, if we bring in the play, like Pogba knows ball. He knows what he wants around him, right? You look at the midfield he has in France and you look at the midfield he has at United, he'll be thinking, France is just by chance that these guys were born and decided to play for France. You guys have the money to go out and buy the players to surround me with, you know, the talent I need to shine. So, yeah, it's difficult. It's difficult, but at the same time, I do understand him wanting to leave.
I think this summer, and look, there's an interesting article from the Manchester Evening News, which we're going to talk about in a moment, about United's priorities, because, you know, that could be very, very good. But we've spoken about this before, the knife edge of United's summer. You know, you could keep Pogba, you could get Sancho, you could get a CDM, you could get Varane. Pogba could go, PSG could get Varane, we could just get Sancho and nothing else. You know, it's a good summer, it's a bad summer. And Pogba, in many ways, it could be symbolic of this summer, because if you keep Pogba, and the hope would be that if Pogba signs a new contract, he's signing a new contract because he sees a team that could win the title. Pogba could be very, very symbolic. 5 years of false promises and fake dreams, I wouldn't sign if I was him, and I wouldn't. 5 years of fake promises and false dreams, I wouldn't sign if I was him, says Ali Jabbar. And I think there is, you know, a lot of sympathy in the fan base that, you know, Pogba ambition, because it's not as if there might be someone in the fan base who goes, well, if Pogba's, he's turning, you know, if he wants to go and win something elsewhere, well, he's obviously a shit player because he hasn't won it here. But it's a team game, you know. United need a CDM, they need a centre back, they need creativity. As you said there, Levin, with Pogba and France, it's a different story between Pogba and Manchester United, and he does need better players around him, and he's 28. Callum Wells, I've put you up here, even though you were being a bit of a troll. He says, you guys got fooled about Sancho once again. We were talking about this morning. I don't know whether you saw it, Levin, about this morning. There was some breaking news that United had put a bid in, covered it this morning, and basically said, well, how recent is this breaking news? Because we put a bid in 10 days ago. Well, I'll get your thoughts on this, because there's been a further update. Jan Arge Fjortoft has come out and said that Manchester United made a 70 million bid for Sancho 10 days ago. They submitted it to Dortmund directly. Dortmund told United they want 90 million plus add-ons, or you will stay. There's been no new bid since. And since then, Romano has also said, I've not said anything about any official bid today. I'm with Jan Arge Fjortoft. Negotiations are ongoing. All parties are confident. Man United know they've got to pay 95 million euros and work in progress on payment structure, bonus, etc. It's not about a new bid today. It's about negotiation and talks ongoing. So it does feel like we have been fooled by some regurgitation, which is something I've been warning people about a long time. You know, these bids 10 days ago has now been rehashed as a bid today, and it feels like this morning was just a big load of smokescreen. What's your thoughts on the situation?
So when it comes to the whole regurgitation thing, I think that at some point it got very clear that was happening, right? When you have certain outlets who are literally just repeating the story, and you know, they've gone on thesaurus.com and just typed in, what's another word for close? Do you know what I mean? Like, you could sort of tell at some point. But at the same time, it concerns me, because when you see transfers that get sort of done, you know, like that, when you see, even with Donny van der Beek's transfer, even when you look at, you know, Fabinho a couple of years ago, those transfers that just get done like that, I wish I could like hear the negotiation process. Like, why is it so difficult? If we've reached a point where we know Dortmund aren't going to budge, if they say they want a certain price, they're not going to budge. But if there's leeway in terms of how you actually structure the deal, you know, what is so complicated? What is this big sort of issue that is stopping this from getting done? Why is there such a delay? Obviously, I'm not an expert in transfer. I don't have experience in that area. And so it's why it's sort of, you know, it's something I'm questioning a bunch. But I still remain optimistic. I do still remain optimistic because, you know, I trust certain reporters, and if they are saying that things are more positive than last summer, when it felt like last summer it was, you know, just moments away from being done, then, you know, there's still reason to be optimistic. But it is just, it does just feel like a massive PR spin, like a ridiculous PR spin. It's almost as if like United have no actual intention of getting anything done until, you know, a couple of weeks, but it's just like, let's just keep feeding the media with all of this, do you know what I mean, to keep people happy to some degree.
Galactic Sabres there says deal's not as close as we thought. What am I supposed to do with 590% club t-shirts now? Which is true. What are you supposed to do with that? But ultimately, I think that the situation is, I just think after the Euros is when this deal is going to happen. I've said it for a long time. I feel I'm regurgitating my statement, but I feel I have to do it because people keep regurgitating the story in the press. So you have to keep regurgitating what you said. This deal was going to happen before the Euros, we were told. Credible people have been saying, like you say, Levin, it's close. How do you find close? I always said, look, I'll be happy to be wrong on this because it's only an opinion. But I always felt that new shirts, Euros over, he's not with England, they will announce it after the Euros. And I'm not going to change my mind. And I think this morning, for some reason, we got into this situation because of certain outlets and certain people that this deal was really close and imminent. And quite clearly, Romano and Fjortoft are saying, no, it's not. It's just a regurgitation of a bid. I think they're just trying to, they just want to top the whole Pogba announcement, right? You know, slap Dave and Sancho in a video where they're all dancing around to some music and something, get everyone excited. It makes perfect sense. You know what I mean? We're a massive sort of global brand. You know, this is a massive sign-in. Make the most of it. I definitely get that. We've had a super chat from Wash and Go here. Apologies, Levin, because they're mentioning you. They said, what this is from Wash and Go. You know, I think they're trying to sort of bloody pin us down on a brand deal or something. I don't know what's going on here because they keep infiltrating That's Football and now they're doing That United Stand. It's would you rather time, lads? Would you rather give up shampoo for life or Manchester United never win another title again? Wash and Levin Bridge. Would you rather give up shampoo for life or Manchester United never win a title again? So basically, you can't wash your hair. If you wash your hair, United will never win the league again. Well, I've been washing my hair and we're not winning the league anyway. So for me, it's you know, I don't think washing my hair or not washing my hair is going to make any difference really. And to be honest with you, I need to wash my hair every day. I don't know about you, Levin. My hair gets quite greasy, so I'll give up league titles for fresh hair. Me, to be honest. Could just shave your head, yeah.
For me, I keep it low anyway, so I'm not too far off bold. I'd rather just let it all go. I thought that was going to be a lot harder. Do you know what I mean? When you start hearing, "Oh, Man United never win a title again," you start thinking, "Oh dear, this is going to be difficult, isn't it?" But
no, I think I'd have to go bold bridge by the sounds of it then, because people in the chat are saying, "Come on, if United could win a title, you've got to stop washing your hair." So I'd have to go bold bridge. But I tell you what, that would be one hell of a look. Let's move on. So the next thing I want to talk about, this is coming from Manchester Evening News. So this is something to get your teeth into. They're saying that Manchester United's primary transfer targets, as we know, they are Jadon Sancho and they are Kieran Trippier. But they mention Rafael Varane, which we probably know whether it's achievable or not. And they mentioned Declan Rice, which, I mean, what's your thoughts on that? Trippier, Sancho, Rice, Varane. I've got an initial thought here, but I mean, what's your thoughts?
My thoughts. Edward was watching United Stand and he's gone, they're all going about a DM. We got to give them something. Do you know what I mean? Keep them happy, because it's true with all of the sort of, you know, PR spin and the circus and the media, the fact that there's been minimal talk about a DM when the majority of the fan base has now got to the stage where we're talking about a DM. I think they've acknowledged they've got to give us something there. I don't know. Like, it's come out of nowhere. It's optimistic, but I'm not buying it yet.
Yeah, I think that my initial thought on that is that Rice, Trippier, Sancho, Varane. So Rice is 70 million. Trippier, they want 30 million, 100 million, 80 million for Sancho, 180 million. Varane, maybe 50. That's 230 million, you know.
Yeah.
I think that sort of story is, like you say, it's a great good news story on the weekend for people to go, oh, this could be, I like the sound of that. This could be a really good summer transfer window. But then you start to do the figures and the maths and you realise that even if you take Trippier off, you're still spending 180 million. So Yeah, I don't see it. I mean, look, they also say Haaland, not this summer, but Haaland's still a priority, and as we know, Ollie is obsessed with Haaland. But yeah, we do need a centre defensive midfielder. I definitely want a centre defensive midfielder. I mean, for me, Trippier can just wait. A backup right back's not essential. But if we're going back to keeping Pogba, what do you think that Varane, Sancho, Declan Rice? Do you think that would be what do you think would? I mean, this is a great question actually. What do you think would be enough for Pogba to go? Yeah, because it's a risk for Pogba to stay. Even if you do make the players, he's still got to think, do I even want to take the risk of this working out? I've been here 5 years. What do you think it would be enough for him to go, yeah, come on, let's do it?
It's hard because the root of his issues, you assume, like I always think to myself with Pogba, right? It's like he was at Juventus, who probably had great coaching. He's with France, who probably have great coaching. It just doesn't seem like our coaching spectacular here. There's many different aspects to it, and I think bringing the players in is great, and it shows ambition from the board. It shows ambition from the club in a way that, if we bring 3 or 4 first teamers in, when was the last time we brought about 4 first teamers into the squad, right? Like usually, it seems like you get 1 or 2, and that's basically it. And that might be a thing that Pogba looks at and says, okay, maybe they're finally serious. But I'd still just be so skeptical of, you look at there's so many years of it. Do you know what I mean? There's just so many years of this not being real. And so I genuinely just, I can't blame him for just leaving and just being like, look, I tried it here and it just didn't work out. If they finally change their ways, fair be it, but it's too late for me. Do you know what I mean? Like, you should have done this a couple of years ago. So I can't blame them for that. I can't blame them.
No, sorry, I'll repeat that. I think that is a really interesting point, and I think that the issue with United is going to be that I just think nobody has any trust that they can deliver the sort of transfer window that a Chelsea or a Manchester City, maybe even a Liverpool, when they did it that summer when they went and got Alisson and everybody else, to go and deliver the signings that are required. And I think with Pogba, what he cannot do is go, look, all right, let's, you can't say to Pogba, we're going to get a couple this year and we'll get a couple next summer. He can't commit to that. He's been here for 5 years, is a long time as well. 5 years has sort of flown by in a way. So be interesting. But one player who isn't going to go anywhere this summer, but he's getting masses, bringing it back to the Euros, he's getting masses and masses of conversation today is Bruno Fernandes. Are you at a point where with Bruno, you're concerned? I mean, one game today, but a lot of people, there just seems to be this thing that, yeah, Bruno's a good player, even from, and I'm not bothered about rival fans. The obsession is weird, but even from some United fans, he's a good player, but he just never turns up in the big game.
I'm actually quite disappointed with what's happened today, because I have seen a bit of that where it's like people are coming for Bruno. Portugal have just lost in a game with the Premier League Player of the Year at the heart of their defence, in a game where they've conceded 4 goals, and the player we're all harping on is Bruno. The worst player on the pitch was the right back, Semedo, for Wolves. You know what I mean? There's many players who are at fault today, and yeah, true, Bruno didn't have a great game, and of course, the United channel, we're going to talk about a player. Am I concerned about Bruno? No. I'm not concerned about Bruno. I think for a lot of people, when Bruno came, you sort of did have like a honeymoon period where everything was just like incredible, and you can sort of expect that to deteriorate over the time. Like, honeymoon periods come to an end, and even if you actually look like at things statistically this season, you can see where he's just a bit burnt out. Like last season, although he wasn't here for long, if you look at like heat maps and average positioning and things of that nature, he was just in an advanced position most of the game, right? Whether that's, centrally, left, right, just always advanced. This season, you can see on heat maps where he's just dropping much deeper, right? And a lot of that is just down to the fact that he's not getting the ball off Fred McTominay. So he's dropping deeper to try get himself. And you can see it in games, like we'll be in the 70th minute of a game and you can just see in his face, he's just frustrated. So he drops deeper to try and influence the game. Like, he's burnt out. He's being used, non-stop. Like, of course, he's going to have a couple stinkers here and there. Like, we're seeing it with loads of players over the course of the Euros who have just been overused. And so I'm not looking at it, overreacting at all. I'm quite sad that, like, as a fan base, we're not doing more to protect our player from that. Because like you sort of alluded to, Bruno is already someone that gets targeted. You know what I mean? People try and discredit him in any way possible. And it's like, he's a brilliant player. You can't deny he's a brilliant player. So yeah, I'm not entertaining any of that. None of that for me.
Paris says, do you think we need to change our formation, especially with reports of 5 at the back? We can discuss that in a moment, Paris, no problem. And also, what's this one? Sean Turner says, people talking about Bruno, look at Diaz, he was awful and he was in the Champions League final as well. Bruno gets the stick because, yeah, exactly what Levin is saying there. I think that, I think with Bruno, it's just, there's a weird obsession. I mean, he didn't play well today. And one thing I did want to talk about, which maybe feeds into the sort of what people are talking about with the change of formation, there might be, you know, is he burnt out? Because there's a lot of players that, you know, for United played a hell of a lot of games. And Bruno didn't play well today, but neither did Ruben Diaz. And it's very interesting because I thought United, Portugal almost played very like United if talking about formations. You know, Semedo, for all the stick we give Wan-Bissaka, countless times, maybe it's because Pepe's passed it, he's tucking in, almost playing centre-back. And they were very much counter-attacking like United tried to do. But I think with Bruno, it's, you know, I'm very happy with Bruno. And I think that people get obsessive about Bruno. They get upset. If Ronaldo hadn't scored today, they'd be on Ronaldo's back as well. They're very similar players. I mean, Ronaldo's obviously on a different level to Bruno, but they seem to generate such division. Like, there's those people who love them and there's those people who dislike them. And I understand rivals that don't like them, but some of our own fans don't even like him. And I think it's like, it's a bit like, you know, your mates come round to play on your PS5 and they when they're leaving, you go, do you like my PS5? Your games are shit. I don't like it. Yeah, you trot off home and play with your Master System or your N64. I've got a PS5. It's like there's a jealousy there, and I think that with Bruno, look, he might not have the right coach. He might not be being used in the right way. He might be tired, but he's still a Ferrari player. But I would agree, and I don't know whether people in the chat, I don't know what you think, Levin. I do think that I have to be consistent. Bruno for me is probably my favourite player at United. But I have to say, since Christmas, if you'd have said to me at Christmas who's going to be player of the year, I would not have said Ruben Diaz. I would have said Bruno Fernandes. But since Christmas, I don't think he deserved it. So something, even though he contributed with penalties and assists, and I think he created the most key chances in the Premier League season, but he did drop off from Christmas. I think, what is that, just tiredness, or do you think it's fatigue from formation, like some people say? You know, it's been figured out a bit, because it can't. You know, it could be many reasons. Yeah,
I think there's a lot of things you could put a credit to it. I do think that you can, you know, put a lot of sort of the blame on a lot of the sort of coaching and the tactical setup, right? Like the idea of people have sort of figured them out, things of that nature. Sure. I just don't see that drop off as being something to be concerned about. I think, you know, in a season, a lot of the time players will have highs and lows. You look at the season before last season, like Rashford started off the season amazingly, you know, gets injured and, you know, things don't go too well. I wouldn't be surprised if at some point Bruno was carrying an injury last season. He's the kind of player where, you know, he'll say he will just play. Do you know what I mean? And a lot of our players are like that. And look, I know people will be like, oh, you're just giving him excuses. And sure, maybe I just am. But you look at what he's been able to output, even if you don't think he deserved the player of the year, he still had a very strong case for it. Do you know what I mean? So it's like, sure, maybe he wasn't the deserving winner. He still had a strong case. He still had a great season. He was still our best player. So I'm not looking at that. I think the big thing is now, can we bring in people who can take the load off him? Because I think, he does so much. You know, when he's playing at his best, he's just doing so much. And there are games where he doesn't seem to have a big impact. But the one thing about Bruno is that even when he doesn't have a big impact in a game, when there's a key moment, he's involved somehow. He could be missing for a good, 30, 45 minutes. There's a key moment in the game and somehow he's involved. And there's great value in that. Great value in that as a player.
Yeah, I call him a stat padder, and Ronaldo's the same. I thought Ronaldo was quiet today. Yes, he scored a tap in and he got an assist, but you walk off the pitch with 10 fantasy points? I know that's not what Bruno does, but I don't know that's what Ronaldo does, but that's what I call a stat padder. You know, effectively, they deliver you your fantasy league points because and they can do that when they're not playing well. And Ronaldo's always been like that, and Bruno's like that. And I think Lynn Hall just said there, and she's absolutely spot on. that Danilo and Carvalho midfield, I mean, it's a better version of McTominay and Fred because they are actually CDMs, but it's the same thing. They get the ball and they're like sideways pass. They're not moving it into the right areas. And I actually saw Bruno quite a lot, even with Bernardo Silva in the first half, and it might have been why he was subbed off, and Jota. He's in the space. And because Jota's creative himself and Bernardo Silva's creative himself, they don't want to give it to Bruno. They want to try and play the killer pass themselves, and it worked on the first goal. But yeah, I don't know whether Portugal just missed that sort of Renato Sanchez next to a Carvalho or Danilo, and then maybe a Rafa on the wing, so that the team's more balanced. It's got too many number 10s in it for me, and CDMs that don't want to move the ball forward. So he's almost in a United team, and he's had those performances for United where he doesn't get the ball and the number 9 doesn't get the ball. Yeah,
and I think you look at this Portugal squad, there's a lot of imbalance. And the squad that they start with, a lot of imbalance. And same can be said for United. You know, it just comes down to coaching at the end of the day. And I feel bad that I always, I'm pointing in that direction. But those are the sort of mistakes that, don't happen with a lot of the more elite managers. You know what I mean? They don't make those mistakes. They understand, keeping the balance. It's something that Southgate clearly doesn't understand from watching the England game, right? So, these mistakes are made and players try to overcompensate for it. Do you know what I mean? Like, a lot of the time you'll see players maybe dropping deeper because they want to get involved in the game or things like that. It's what happens with Harry Kane at Spurs a lot, but, he's so brilliant that sometimes it works out for him, right? But yeah, I'm not overreacting to Bruno stuff. I think he's a great player playing in two teams where the system around him is just not amazing. Do you know what I mean? Plenty of talent, especially in the Portugal side, but the system around him needs to be better. So,
and 100 people gaming is quite right. It's not stats padding. It's called right time, right place, right time, right place, which is absolutely correct. And also, I think with Bruno as well, yeah, there is definitely fatigue. He's played a ridiculous amount of games. You can't say it for Rashford and then not say it for Bruno. You can't say it for Maguire and not say it for Bruno. And also, he's probably been figured out a little bit as well, because if he's not got the right players with him, it's the same for anybody. If you've not got, I think that I don't like Pogba on the left-hand side, but when he played there, it gave Bruno more space because, there was two creative players there. So look, in a way, that Portugal-France game on Wednesday, if France win it, Portugal on 3 points could be going home. That might be a little bit of an extra week or two for Bruno, which disappoints him, freshens him, gets him ready for the new season, because he definitely needs a break. And Patrick St. Pierre says it's as simple as our midfield is crap. Pogba and Bruno both have to play in the middle, and final third, fix the midfield, and they will be fine. Do want to talk about Donny van der Beek as well. I was told something today, and I don't know how accurate it is. I need to sort of do a bit of digging, but because I was doing watch-alongs, it's very difficult to sort of find out. I told something today that Donny van der Beek may well be on the transfer list for Manchester United. Now, some people are going to be shocked and say, oh, that's ridiculous. And I don't know how accurate it is, but and I will find out in the next sort of 24 hours. But I suppose when you think about it as just an initial, could be just a rumour. I've heard it from a lot of people constantly that if United want to buy a midfielder, it's going to be dependent on Van der Beek and Pogba. And people would say, well, a CDM's not dependent on them. But I think this is about raising funds, Levin. I think it's about raising funds. And because we just don't have a lot of money to spend. So if you want to buy a midfielder, you've got to raise 30, 40 million somewhere. His agent did say it was fake, Jesus is love. But you're talking about something 2 days ago. This is a rumor that's now going around that Manchester United would be open to selling him, which is very different to that story was about Van der Beek saying he wanted to go himself. This is about United potentially would sell him if an offer came in. And it's interesting because on the watch along I was doing earlier, there was Bayern Munich fans saying we'd take him. I think we could make a player out of him. You don't use him properly.
No, I'm a bit concerned hearing that still, even with you sort of clarifying that it was sort of a separate issue, because if I remember correctly, as part of that report a couple of days ago, it's like his agent did say, Donny's spoken to Ollie, like, about the whole situation. And so that sounds like, to me, it's like, Ollie's sort of let him know, you will be utilized a lot more. This is the plan for you next season. And if that's the case, if now it's being said that he's on the chopping block, what's going on? Like,
I think where it came from, just to add a little bit of clarity, because people are saying this is not true, this is not true. Well, look, I hope it isn't true, but where it's coming from is that United may well be keeping Lingard now, which is 20 million they're not going to get. Mata's going to stay. which is a place in the team and a lot of wages. Delo, they can't get a fee for. They don't know what's happening with. If Pogba goes, then Van der Beek will stay. That's as simple as that. But if Pogba's going to stay, they still need a CDM. So the problem is United. Basically, this is, you know, as much as it's Van der Beek, you could also say maybe it's Martial. You know, maybe it's Lindelof. I don't think anybody at United. Well, there are certain players are safe, but I think United realise that to generate funds to buy certain imperative positions, they may have to listen to offers for players that, you know, aren't necessarily on the transfer list. But I suppose the question would be, if Pogba stays, would you be happy to let Van der Beek go to generate the funds to buy a CDM?
Yes, but I don't want to see him go, and that's the key thing that I want to keep, you know, clear. Like, I don't want to see Van der Beek go. I feel like he's been treated unfairly. I think it'd be a disgrace if he was to go after the year like that he's had. Like, it would just be a disgrace, because it's not like other scenarios where someone comes in, they're just not what we expected. It's like, he's not really been given a fair chance. Like, he's never been given that run of games, and there's been many instances where he's played and he looked impressive. So to me, it's like, you know, he deserves an opportunity. He deserves an opportunity. Ollie's shown he's not going to give him that from this season. Ollie's shown he's not going to give him that. So if moving him on would give us the funds to get the CDM we need, you know, sadly, I would just take it, because I really think we need a CDM. But it would hurt me to see him go, because I like Donny. I like Donny a lot. And I don't like the fact that it's like, oh, what happens to Pogba depends on Donny. What happens to depends on Donny. It's like, Donny should just be in the squad. Donny's a great player that if he's integrated into the system more, he can give Pogba rest, he can give Bruno rest, he can battle them for their spots and really make our squad more competitive. Like, what does he do in training? He must be like a shocking player in training or something, and we just don't know. Like, there must be something. Like, what is the reasoning behind Donny just being this outcast almost? Like, I see him smiling in the pictures of everyone and everyone gets along with him, but it's like, there must be something we're not seeing. Do you know what I mean?
Well, it's a bit like Twansebi, isn't it? You know, what did Twansebi do? He played against PSG, he pockets Neymar and Mbappe. What did he do in training the next day? Did he get nutmegged by Phil Jones on crutches or something? Like, there must be stuff going on in training that we're not seeing, because I think Twansebi, Donny van der Beek, Brandon Williams, you know, I think these players should have played more football this season. And when they do play, you know, certainly in the case of Donny and Twansebi, they've done really well. But then you think, in training, what are they doing? Like, you know, are they shooting and smacking Ollie in the face or something? It's like, you know, there's got to be something going on, because it's right. Or is it just pure favouritism? But it's interesting what Amit says there, because he says you could loan Van der Beek out. I mean, I'm with everybody. I'm 11 on this. I think that I want to see Van der Beek given opportunities. But also, what I would say is, if you do bring a CDM in, so you bring a CDM in, whether it's Declan Rice or Ndidi or whoever, a proper CDM, they're going to start because we haven't got one. You then put Pogba next to them, because that's what he can play that position when he's got a good CDM next to him. It gives him the license that he wants. And then you got Bruno, that's your starting three. You still got Fred, you still got Scott McTominay, and you still got Donny van der Beek. So you got 6 midfielders, of which only one of them can actually still play CDM. So there is, I think there is an issue coming forward, you know. And maybe that issue will be the obvious one we've spoken about, Pogba goes. But if Pogba did stay, I still think you're top heavy, because, look, Fred's doing well for Brazil. I don't care whether he's doing well for Brazil. I mean, what do you think of Fred, actually? What is Fred? I mean, he's playing well for Brazil and everyone's saying he's great. McTominay's playing well for Scotland, but he's playing at a centre-back in a back five. You know, for me, neither are CDM, but if neither will be sold. So they're going to play football. Where do you use them? Box to box? Well,
Fred is a brilliant Carabao Cup CDM. He is a brilliant CDM that you stick him on in the Carabao Cup. He'll be competitive in training. You know, he's boys with Telles and Bruno. You know, you keep those guys happy, that sort of Portuguese speaking core. You know, fair enough. You know, I can see why Fred would be a nice guy to keep around in that sense. You know, McTominay, he's going to play ahead of Donny if we were to switch our system to be one where we play a DM and 2 8s, McTominay would get in over Donny, because, you know, he'd be that sort of, you know, pressing centre mid number 8 that's really, you know, active and driving the ball forward. It's sad, but yeah, Donny probably wouldn't play. Even if we were to get that DM, he still wouldn't get a chance. There's so many players ahead of him. In terms of Fred and McTominay, though, like I'm not too high on them. I don't think they are completely useless, but I'm just not too high on them. I don't think they should be starting for Manchester United in important matches, which is what they do. And especially when, like, I'm pretty sure Fred's on, like, really big wages, which is, like, I don't know about that one, but yeah, it just shouldn't be starting for us.
I think it's interesting because I obviously get a bit of stick for what I think about McTominay, and a lot of people are saying sell him, this, that, and the other. McTominay's part of our future. I've heard this from many people. He's part of our future. He's, you know, whilst Ollie's in charge and Carrick is a coach, he's a massive part of our future, and he will play games, and Ollie will find a place for him. But you know, the interesting thing for me is I think with McTominay and Fred, if they have a future at this club, it's got to be in the box-to-box role. Neither of them are anywhere near good enough. You know, I do agree with Levin there. Carabao Cup CDMs. And a Carabao Cup CDM to me is maybe it's a Newcastle CDM or something like that, which is exactly where I think they're at. Box-to-box, look, let's see what they can do. And look, I've always been a big fan of Fred. I think he's, you know, I think I said numerous times, I've said he's one of the most underrated players in the Prem. But I think he's become one of the worst midfielders in the Prem because of the system. I don't think Lindelof. I think Lindelof could go and play with the right centre back next to him and be a really good centre back. I think Lindelof looks bad because he doesn't complement Maguire, and I think Fred and McTominay look bad because neither of them suit that position. I mean, we've seen McTominay be man of the match against Leeds when he drives forward. So the CDM is the key that sets everybody free, I think.
Yeah, and you know what's crazy? It's like I look at McTominay and I see him being a very useful sort of utility player in our system, where I could see him sort of doing the job that Calvin Phillips did the other day for England, where you have someone where they are just, they have a mad work rate. They're going to put in a tackle and push the team higher up the pitch and drive forward like what he did with against Leeds. And I could see that being a role that he plays where, you know, maybe Ollie brings him in certain games to stick him on a certain man. Do you know what I mean? Because he does have that sort of, you know, people joke and call him a passion merchant, but he will come in and put in a job. Do you know what I mean? And so they're not useless. They shouldn't be the focal points of our team. They shouldn't be key to our system. It should sort of be used as utility players. That is sort of their level in the context of being in like top six sides. So yeah, there's a space for them, but what is that space?
Luke, I love your shows. How can I join the United Stand? Well, Levin's obviously managed to do that in 2 weeks, so it can be done. We basically just we just keep watching the shows. There are opportunities coming up, and as I said this morning, the call-ins are going to be coming back as well, so that's always a good way. What was this one from Rishab? He says, if we play with one CDM and two eights, McTominay can be back up for Pogba and Donny can be back up for Bruno. Yeah, I'm in for that. I'm in for that. We just need that CDM, that one CDM that can hold the midfield. And actually, you probably need two, because what if the CDM comes in, does well for 3 weeks, pulls his hamstring? You know, what do we do? We're actually so lost in that situation. And you know, Matic can't do it anymore. Of course he can't. And but look, I think it's the priority position, and it's very interesting that we're spending the summer, you know, trying to get that Sancho deal done again and looking at Trippier. There really isn't anything going on around a CDM. And the worrying thing with that, Levin, is that, you know, I've said this before, maybe we're not looking for one because he's quite happy with the McTominay-Fred pivot, which forces you then to not use Pogba in the midfield.
Yeah, and I could definitely see a world where that's a thing. I could definitely see a world where, you know, Ed's come down to speak to Ollie and he said, you know, what do we need to, where do you think we need to improve the squad? What don't you like about the squad? And I can see a world where he's just not mentioned McTominay or Fred whatsoever. He's just like, yeah, we probably need a better centre back and maybe some more creativity off the right. And I think Aaron needs a bit more of a challenge. And Ed's like, you know, anything in the midfield, you know, the DM's like, we need to re-sign Pogba's contract. Like he's not mentioning McFred at all. So yeah, that's a concern. But it'll be very telling. It'll be very telling what happens this summer in terms of where Ollie's heads at with the squad. Because especially when you hear like reports about him being obsessed with a striker, it's like his priorities. All managers have different sort of philosophies, ideas, and all of them are always weird in different ways. But if Ollie can't see the glaring issues of the squad, it's like he's not doing himself any favors. Do you know what I mean? I'm not calling for his head, but he's just not doing himself any favors.
No, not at all. Well, look, we could talk and talk, but I'm very aware that people are probably going to be shooting off to watch the Spain versus Poland game. We've had 2 cracking games today, and I'm sure that'll be great. There's a watch along on That's Football for that, so get yourself over to there. But we have got the 8 o'clock show's back tomorrow. We've got an 8 o'clock show tomorrow. There's no 8 o'clock Euros game tomorrow. It's a 5 o'clock game. So we've got the 8 o'clock show tomorrow night, and I think you're going to be on the panel with us as well, Levin. Is that right?
Yes, I will be there. So
cool. So we're assembling the crew for that one. So we've got an 8 o'clock show tomorrow. Can't wait for that. But yes. We'll just have to wait. I mean, look, Sancho, I'm going to keep telling you this ain't happening for a couple of weeks, but if it happens before, fantastic. It will happen. I think everyone knows it will happen, but it's not going to happen. We've been bantered. We've been bantered again this morning. It just keeps getting regurgitated. And Nick P with a nice message for Levin there. Superb edition. New speaks with extra bass for your presence. There you go. Thank you very much.
That, man.
Well, thanks everyone for watching. Make sure you smash a like, subscribe. Big up to Levin, and we will see you on the next one. That's Football is live with a watch along as well for Spain versus Poland. Enjoy it, and we'll speak to you in a bit.